This is the first lesson in Real Estate Analytics 101, and the title is Data Sources. Welcome, my name is Saad. For reference, we're at the first orange dot, the number 1, in this diagram. So when I say data sources, I'm referring to the systems where the data comes from, the data that you're going to be using for analytics. Systems such as Yardi, Entrata, Rent Manager, AppFolio, etc. The data can also come from Excel files, such as your proformas and underwriting assumptions. In this lesson, I'm going to cover 4 main topics: data quality, whether the systems you're going to be pulling data from are open or closed, situations where the data has to come from multiple systems, and when Excel is a source of the data that you're going to be analyzing. So understanding these 4 pieces of information will give you a good idea if your analytics journey is going to be long or short, and what kind of technology you'll have to learn and invest in. So let's start with the quality of the data. So imagine you've been asked to analyze maintenance work orders and answer 3 simple questions. How long do work orders stay open? How many work orders does each technician process in a month? And what are the common types of problems being worked on? For example, faucet leaks, appliance defects, pests, etc. Sounds simple, right? So you export the data, pull it into Excel, and build some pivot tables. And then you see a problem. Most of the tickets have an open status. Even some tickets that were created 12 months ago are still open. You also notice that the vast majority of tickets are assigned to one technician who happens to be the supervisor. And the problem type field isn't specified in the work order, so there's no way of knowing what type of work was actually done. So the questions that you've been asked to answer can't be answered because of the way the maintenance module is being used in your company. The data is not usable. So in the real world, you don't want to start a project and then find out if the data is not usable. We see this all the time at RentViewer. We are hired to build dashboards for companies, and then we learn that the way our client is entering data into their system makes it impossible to calculate the metrics they want. For example, a company wanted to know if water bills are rising, but they charge their water, gas, and electricity bills to the same general ledger account. That makes it impossible to look at only the trend for water bills. So accompanying this lesson is a PDF. It's an example of a checklist you can use to assess the quality or usefulness of the data that's in the systems. You've heard the term garbage in, garbage out. If the data you're going to use for analytics is flawed, like the service tickets example that I gave earlier, your analytics is going to be limited. So let's look at this checklist. Now there are 2 ways to mess up data quality. First, at the beginning when you initially set up your system, and then later as transactions are entered while the system is used. So let's start with the initial system setup. So systems like Yardi, Entrata, Rent Manager, etc. are complex. They have many features and settings that can be configured to how you run your business. So some companies hire professionals to help set up the system and follow best practices. Other companies set up these systems with little prior training or a game plan. So in the first part of this checklist, we ask you to find out how your systems were set up, how much customization was involved, how many workarounds were created. This will give you an idea whether your analytics journey is going to be complicated or not. The second way to mess up data quality is while using the system every day. So many companies require users of the system to receive training. Others don't. I've seen companies that have standard operating procedures written for things such as creating invoices, recording payments, managing work orders, setting up a new property, or processing a resident move-out, and so on. Fields have the needed pick list values, and fields such as dates and statuses and comments are required to be filled in. So companies that have such formal processes are most likely to have data that is usable for data analytics. These are the companies that are likely to get full value from data analytics. What if your company's systems aren't being used according to best practices? What if the data in your systems is not usable? Well, don't despair. If the data in your systems is not easily usable, it doesn't mean you can't ever utilize data analytics. All it means is that your journey is going to be longer and your time to value is going to be much longer than other companies that use their systems differently and have usable data. So once you discover that the data is not usable, you have two options. Make the most of what you have and get your leadership team involved in fixing the data at the source. And I recommend you do both. Let your leadership know. The mission of this course is to help you become an analytics thought leader in your company. So data quality is one place to start. Your company leadership team can be persuaded. I'm going to assume that they're in real estate for the long haul. And they know that they can't be flying blind, not knowing where money is being lost. For example, being unaware of how much money is going into make-ready or lead generation or vacancy loss and such. They know they will need good data at some point, and they will have to invest in procedures and training so that the systems get used properly. Make them aware of this. Other companies are doing it. Such data improvement initiatives will go into action plans that you see here on this diagram. We'll cover that later in this course when we talk about value and impact from analytics. So far I've been talking about data quality. I'll cover 3 more topics in this lesson. Is your system open or closed? And what if your data has to come from multiple systems? And what if Excel is one of the major sources of your data? Let's talk about closed and open systems. This impacts how much automation can be achieved and what kind of technical architecture you have to put in place. And ultimately, how much you might have to spend to automate. See, some systems are open and some systems are not. Systems such as Rent Manager and Entrata are very open. They have an API and it is easy to pull data out of them. Others are closed. For example, most companies using Yardi or AppFolio have to rely on Excel exports or employ very technical team members to get the data out. When real estate companies reach out to us for dashboards and analytics help, we ask them which systems they're using. And as soon as we learn that, we can quickly envision what kind of a technology architecture will need to be put into place and how complex it'll be to automate their metrics. So after open and closed systems, the next topic is how many data sources do you have? So some companies use the same system for accounting, leasing, capital projects, lead management, work orders, etc., while others use separate systems for some of the functions. So when multiple systems are involved, here are some considerations. Typically, there'll be some columns that will be common across these systems. For example, property name, unit number, GL account, charge type, unit type, etc., may exist in some form in more than one system. So you're probably going to have to join these columns when analyzing your data. Most likely, properties are not named the same way in each system. The unit numbers are not entered the same way in each system. So you'll have to do some data mapping when you build your data sets for analytics. This will create more work for you, and it is better to fix the naming conventions across the systems if possible. The final topic in this lesson is what if your data is sitting in Excel files? For example, you might have pro formas in Excel, or you might have various deal analysis models in Excel, or you might have simply created Excel sheets for various operations and acquisitions processes. So how to feed this data into dashboards or into analytics models? Well, this can be easy or extremely complex, depending on how the Excel files have been built. So there's a term, pivot table ready. This means that the data is in a format from which a pivot table can readily be created. It's a tabular format. That is, the data is in rows and columns and has no subtotals or merged cells or blank rows or blank columns and so on. So data from your Excel files first has to be put into a pivot table ready format before it can be easily used for building dashboards. And when we go into the lesson on data extraction, I'll cover one method for converting complex Excel files into a pivot table ready format. So I'll conclude now. Hope you found this information useful. In summary, the quality and completeness of the data in your systems is the biggest driving factor for how much value you're going to be able to get from data analytics. Good data has to be entered into the system for an analytics program to really catch on within your company. The open or closed nature of your systems and how many systems you have will also drive the complexity of your journey ahead. But these are small challenges compared to data quality. So please share your feedback on this video. I invite you to subscribe to the RentViewer YouTube channel and also follow our page on LinkedIn. The next lesson in Analytics 101 is going to be about data extraction. I'll talk about ways to get data out of your systems into a format that is usable for analytics. Thank you.